Welcome back to Talking Dragon Age, the show where I talk about Dragon Age. Continuing with our series on the Elven Gods, today we're talking about Sylaise and her apparent husband, June. And I have to talk about his name. As Gilderthalin pointed out in her video on him, the World of Thedas says his name is pronounced June. Honestly, this whole thing reminds me of Ra's al Ghul. I don't care if it's supposed to be Raish. Raz sounds cooler, and I think is how most people read it. Arrow handled this extremely well, where even people in the show pronounced it different ways, as they would in reality. It also brings to mind Voldemort. J.K. Rowling, which is another name victim of this concept, has said that she intended the T to be silent, but everyone read it pronouncing the T. I can just see Tom Riddle sitting down deciding his new name, like, yeah, let's have a silent T. Nothing says menacing like a silent T. But unless he was able to communicate that to the entire wizarding world, everyone would still read it as Voldemort, with the T. So I don't care if it's meant to be June. I'm still saying June. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Sylaise and June were apparently married, although some tales suggest that June was the brother of Sylaise and Andrew, whose name is kind of hard to say. The word brother may be symbolic or figurative, applying to most of the Evanuris, or it may be a case of the tales being misinterpreted and or changing over time. There's a lot of that in Dragon Age, and especially with the Elves. Alternatively, it may be that they were brother and sister, and the whole married thing is what's incorrect. It's also possible that they were both siblings and married, but I'm not sure the writers would want to go that route. You know, I usually try to not think in terms of what the writers plan or intend, but rather I think of universes like Dragon Age as their own worlds with their own history. History which, again, is subject to misinterpretation. This brings me to the codex entry called The Mystery of June, where a scholar explains that June is considered to be the god of crafts. Although depictions of him date back to the times of Arlathan, the oldest depictions of him show him with none of the tools the Dalish typically associate with him. The scholar speculates that June's role may have changed over time. It's also stated that he appears least often out of all the elven gods. Let's put that on hold for a minute and talk about Sylaise. She is the goddess of domestic arts and homekeeping and stuff like that. According to Dalish legends, she is credited with teaching the elves many herbal remedies, the creation of rope, the proper use of fire and magic, as well as stuff like music and art. In the Temple of Mythal, we find a codex entry for a song to Sylaise. This may suggest that she had something of a rivalry with the other gods, but I won't jump to that conclusion. It could just be that her followers simply chose to follow her over her peers and are showing reverence. What is interesting is that the author here is unknown. Most of the other entries on elven legends come from a traceable source, the Ralafaran clan, Brother Jeditivi, or other scholars. There are even a few in the Temple of Mythal with such origins, but also some, like this, that do not. That is important information. Now, there's honestly not much to say on Sylaise, but one other prominent mention comes from the library in Trespasser, in an entry for the raising of the Senalium. I'm reasonably guessing how to pronounce that. As with many entries in Virtathara, this one can be a little hard to understand. Basically, there are a bunch of elves on an island floating in a void. They're maintaining a ritual wherein the raw essence of the Fade is pulled into a sphere, which then shows the image of a grand palace temple by indigo waterfalls and rust-red jungles. Meanwhile, overseeing this, a group of well-dressed elves are fiercely arguing as the sphere is raised. Eventually, the shouting becomes so loud it can be heard over the magic. Finally, one draws a blade and leaps at another. At the bottom, this is described as the Senalium's architects having a friendly debate over the color of the roof trims on the temple palace seen in the sphere which is called the Grand Senalium, meant to be a gift from Sylaise to June as thanks for a great favor. Now before we get into the Sylaise and June thing, I do want to talk about this Grand Senalium. It's speculated that a Senalium is meant to show memories, and this is why the architects were arguing, because they each remember the roof trimmings as having a different color. Alternatively, this could be some kind of portal similar to an alluvion, except jumping into the sphere would take you into such a place as seen from the outside. Like maybe this is a pocket dimension within the Fade which houses this palace temple and the architects are arguing over what color it should be. Honestly, we don't have enough information to know for sure. Be sure to leave your own thoughts in the comments. With all that said, I think we can now get back to Sylaise and June. It said Sylaise was going to give the Senalium to June as a gift in return for a great favor. We have no idea what this favor was. We have no idea if it happened before or after they were married. What we do have is clear evidence of Sylaise and June in friendly interaction. While Solas describes the elven gods as fickle, arrogant, and prone to infighting, we have at least Sylaise and June being civil. So with all that said, I think I'm about ready to wrap this up. Honestly, there's not much to work with here with June and Sylaise, but it was absolutely still worth making this video. Next time we're talking about Ghilan'nain. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment and like, and remember, Tala Nadas.